Before we were yelling Fusrodars off of mountaintops, taking arrows to the knee, and actively avoiding Nazim and his Cloud District sermons, there was the Amulet of Kings. There were mud crabs more fearsome than half the Daedric princes. There was the Adoring Fan. Why Bethesda? But after nearly 2 decades, it's time to close shut the jaws of Oblivion again. Hello Kakuchopurei, my name is Lickety, and welcome back to Loot or Leave It, the series where we brave questionable character models, awkward dialogue trees, and deeply suspicious quest rewards, all in the name of reviewing games and figuring out if they deserve your time and septims. Yes, today we'll be reviewing the remaster of Oblivion, a game I hold so dearly to my heart that hearing "Stop right there, criminal scum!" still triggers a Pavlovian smile. And I genuinely hope this remaster helps a whole new generation of players fall in love with it the way I did, bugs, bloat and all. But to understand Oblivion is to understand chaos. For those who were too young to remember, or weren't even born yet, allow me to enlighten you. You're probably more familiar with Skyrim, the streamlined younger sibling with most of the kinks ironed out. Oblivion, on the other hand, was a pub brawl between ambition and absurdity. You start as a prisoner, obviously, then get sucked into a world-ending crisis involving demon portals, fiery realms, and Sean Bean doing his best noble sacrifice routine. But beyond that main quest, which, let's face it, most people abandon after Martin Septon starts talking, the real joy is in wandering aimlessly into side quests that escalate into operatic nonsense. One minute you're chasing a stolen painting, next you're stuck inside said painting, stabbing trolls made of oil paint. Then there's that time you help a man fake his own death by paralyzing him and convincing his friends to cry over his limp, conscious body. This remaster keeps all of that intact. Every weird quest, every jank NPC line delivery, every unintentionally hilarious guard reaction. The mechanics, however, are still, well, very 2006. The combat is still floaty, like you're slapping enemies with a wet baguette, enemy level scaling remains deeply cursed, and God help you if you're playing a stealth archer. But that's Oblivion. It's not elegant, it's not tight. What it is sandbox chaos. It's a simulation of what happens when you give a million systems and mechanics duct tape and ask them to dance together. What the remaster wisely doesn't do is over-modernize the feel. Yes, the UI has been touched up, yes, the controls are smoother on controller, but this is still very much Oblivion, and thank Talos for that. So yes, Oblivion Remastered is a glow-up in the best way, and I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean it literally no longer glows like a nuclear mishap in Brazil. Bethesda and Virtuos have slapped a modern RPG's face onto the charmingly awkward skeleton of a nearly 20-year-old classic. It's still running on Unreal Engine 5 for the visuals, but under the hood, that's still the trusty old creation engine, creaky gears and all. It's a Frankenstein's monster of new tech and vintage game logic, and somehow, it works. Textures? Sharpened. Models? Rebuilt. Lighting? Actual lighting this time, not a divine glow stick effect. Visually, it's a full-blown overhaul. It looks like a brand new game, but underneath, it's still Oblivion. Still prone to the occasional jank, still home to the awkward NPC conversations and AI pathing that feels like it was programmed by someone with vertigo. But you know what? That was part of its charm. There's no major rewriting, no massive mechanical reinvention, but it's also not some lazy port with a texture mod slapped on top. It's Oblivion as you remember it, not as it actually was. That's the nostalgia filter in high resolution. Captured footage is all from the PC version, and yes, hardcore fans might spot a few oddities here and there. The purists might even twitch. But to anyone new to Oblivion, especially if you only started your Elder Scrolls journey with Skyrim, this remaster is basically a lost chapter brought back from the dead with RTX cheekbones. It still feels dated, sure, but there's an undeniable charm to its systems and world design that more than makes up for it. There's plenty of good adventuring here, but you just need to be willing to embrace the weird. But how does it compare to the original? Well, let's wind the clock back to 2007 for a moment. Oblivion back then was revolutionary. Open world fantasy had never looked or felt so grand. But even diehard fans will admit, those visuals age faster than a sweet roll left out in the sun. Yes, the muddy textures, the oddly shiny character models, the infamous potato face aesthetic. It was charming in a your mum says you're handsome sort of way, but not exactly timeless. This remaster, however, it fixes all of that, or at least tries to. Bethesda and Virtuos have zeroed in on what was arguably the original game's biggest Achilles heel, its graphics, and given it a full-on face transplant. And the result? Honestly, it might just be one of the best looking Bethesda titles out right now. It doesn't lean all the way into Skyrim's stark, broody aesthetic, but there's definitely some influence. Colours are slightly more subdued than the OG Oblivion, dialing down that fantasy storybook filter in favour of something more modern. A bit more gritty, a bit less fairy tale. It works mostly, though I do miss the biome variety. Everything now sort of blends together into vaguely temperate wilderness rather than distinct regions. Still, the moment you step into Skingrad or wander through the Imperial City, it hits you. That surreal feeling of deja vu. These places that once lived in the foggy corners of your PS3 memory are now fully realised. They're crisper, more detailed, and NPCs no longer look like they're sculpted out of melted soup. Weapons glint, armour looks like it belongs in a museum, not a community theatre. Even towns feel less like sets on a soundstage and more like actual living places. It's by no means perfect, there are still minor inconsistencies in texture work and lighting, but it's a massive glow up across the board. And unless you're the type who mods Morrowind for realism, this'll look fine to your average dragon slaying, mudcrab fearing adventurer. Oh, and let's talk about the little things. The quality of life improvements that, while not game changers, do make your journey through Cyrodiil a lot smoother. For one, the devs have added some much needed variety to voice acting. If you remember the original Oblivion, you'll probably recall the feeling of deja vu whenever you spoke to anyone. Why? Because every NPC was voiced by about 3 voice actors, and you heard the same couple of lines every time. Well, in this remaster, they've at least tried to mix things up. There's more vocal differentiation now, which gives the world a bit more life. But let's be honest, they've always kept the same slightly awkward cadence that we all love to mock. There's no mistaking it. It's Oblivion, but with a bit more character. Still, it feels a little dated. Like they wanted to update it, but they didn't want to change too much. And here's where it gets interesting. Despite all these improvements, the devs have kept the original game's quirks. And by quirks, I mean bugs. Oh yes, those classic Oblivion exploits are still here. Whether it's the infinite gold trick, the hilarious broken AI, or the questionable physics that somehow allow Imperial guards to rubber band across your screen. It's a bit charming honestly, and shows that the developers really do have a deep love for the original. Almost too much of a love, really. It's like when you've got an ex who's just a bit too clingy. They're great, but sometimes you wish they'd let go and give you some space for something a little bit more polished. Well, all of this adds the nostalgia and authenticity of the experience. A little more polish, just a little bit more, would have helped this feel like the definitive edition. But hey, it's not all bad. The game's still the same chaotic, glitchy, fun-filled mess we remember, just with better visuals and a few tweaks to make things feel a little less stuck in 2006. Alright, now let's dive into the gameplay changes and tweaks. If you were expecting a complete overhaul of Oblivion's core systems, you might be a bit disappointed. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. A lot of the core gameplay remains unchanged because, let's face it, Oblivion's mechanics were great, despite their quirks. However, some subtle, but much appreciated improvements make this experience feel fresher without losing the charm of the original. Let's start with the third-person camera. Remember how it used to feel like your character was a weird puppet with stiff, awkward movements? Well, that's been vastly improved. The camera is much more fluid now, and the movement of your character feels more natural, giving you the option to actually play the game without it feeling like you're piloting a malfunctioning flesh mecha. It's a minor change, but one that really elevates the experience. Animations have also been given some love. Gone are the days of the infamous stiff combat animations. The new hit animations now make combat feel like it has some weight to it. You can actually feel the impact of a sword striking an enemy. It's not perfect, but it's a notable improvement that adds to the overall polish. Combat feedback still doesn't match the fluidity and responsiveness of Skyrim, but it's definitely a step up. Even if it doesn't quite match the standards set by its successor, you're still going to get that slightly delayed swing, but it's far more bearable than before. Now, the UI has received a much needed cleanup. It's easier to read and the design feels more streamlined. It's still true to the original though, so fans of the old school interface won't be disappointed. It's not a complete overhaul, but it doesn't need to be. It's functional, it works, and it looks decent. One of the biggest gameplay changes is the sprint function. This is a game changer, folks. Oblivion was always a bit of a jog fest when it came to travel. You've got Skyrim style sprinting at your disposal and it makes a world of difference. Whether you're dashing across Cyrodiil or sprinting through Oblivion gates, it alleviates some of the travel fatigue. I just can't get over the animation. It makes you look like you're sprinting with a purpose. Speaking of, those Oblivion gates still feel like a slog, especially after the first few dozen. But the ability to sprint through them makes them far less of a chore. And on top of that, the new approach to distance in this game is an odd choice. Now distances are measured in steps. It's one of those quirky design decisions that you'll either love or hate. But on the plus side, the sprinting feature offsets this by cutting down the amount of time it takes to cross those seemingly endless fields and forests. Again, a minor tweak, but it really helps with the pacing. Now, onto one of the bigger changes: stat allocation. Gone is the rigid original system where your stats grew in a fixed way. Now you manually assign stats when leveling up, giving you more control over how you build your character. This is a game changer for role players like myself, as it really lets you shape your character the way you want without being locked into predefined paths. So if you want a tanky mage or a stealthy warrior, the power's in your hands. You can still make some truly bizarre Oblivion face-like creations that will haunt your nightmares. Seriously, some of these faces look like they belong in a horror movie. Emperor Uriel Septon's face? Yeah, it's a little uncanny now. He kinda looks like he just stepped out of a 2000s era CGI film. But it's a whole lot better than what it was. And hey, if you ever wanted to create a character that looks like it was chiseled from clay by an AI, you've come to the right place. The moment we've all been waiting for. Stepping out of the tutorial dungeon and into the wide, beautiful world of Cyrodiil. Oblivion was always about that sense of freedom, and Oblivion Remastered does a fantastic job of maintaining that spirit. The world is yours to explore, and once you leave the confines of the Imperial City, it's a true open world adventure. The beauty of Oblivion lies in the fact that you can create your character, go off and explore, and do whatever the heck you want. Want to be a hero? You can do that. Want to be a morally questionable thief who robs everyone in sight? Go ahead, nobody's stopping you. You can even make your character as ridiculous or as cool as you want, whether it's a vampire with a thirst for justice, or a fuzzy beefy Khajiit with a deep love for cheese. The game doesn't judge. And the best part? You're free to take on quests in whatever order you want. Sure, you've got the main story, but you're just as likely to get distracted by a random NPC asking you to rescue their cat or retrieve a lost item from a dungeon, which will inevitably turn into a monster-filled nightmare. Now let's talk about DLC, and no, I'm not talking about a season pass that creates an Oblivion Gate-shaped hole in your wallet. Oblivion Remastered includes every bit of downloadable content that was released in the original game. This is a major win for fans, and honestly, it makes this remaster feel like the definitive edition, despite what I said earlier. The big hitters are all here. Shivering Isles with its wild, chaotic storyline featuring the manic Sheogorath, and Knights of the Nine, where you get to play Knight in shining armor, but still with that Oblivion edge. And let's be honest, one of the standouts in this remaster is the way the Shivering Isles look. The DLC's chaotic, dreamlike aesthetic is breathtaking, and it really benefits from the new engine. The twisted, surreal landscape of the Isles has been elevated, and the beauty of it all is unsettling as it is gorgeous. If you're a fan of the original, you'll be in for a treat as these areas now pop with new life. But both of these DLCs offer hours of extra content and give you more chances to explore, fight, and loot. But wait, there's more. All those micro DLCs you probably forgot about, they're included too. Yes, even the infamous horse armor. Bethesda cheekily resells the DLC in a deluxe bundle, but don't worry, the original horse armor alongside the rest is included in the remaster. Honestly, it's kind of funny now, more self-aware than anything else. It's like they're in on the joke and you can't help but chuckle at how ridiculous it all was. On top of that, there's 2 brand new quests where you can get new and exclusive armor. One that represents Akatosh, the god of creation, and one that represents Mehrunes Dagon, the Daedric Prince of Destruction. And better yet, these new armors come each with their own new quest line. So don't worry, the remaster gives you the full Oblivion experience and then some. So what's the final verdict on Oblivion Remastered? It's the nostalgia trip you've been waiting for with just enough modern polish to keep you hooked. Sure, it's not perfect, there are some quirks, some outdated mechanics, and a few missed opportunities for polish. But the core of what made Oblivion such a gem is still there. And it's got that signature Bethesda charm we all know and love. The visuals are stunning, the world still feels vast and inviting, and the freedom to roam wherever you want and be whoever you want is still just as thrilling as it was back in 2007. The fact that all the DLC is included, along with the cheeky nod to the horse armor saga, makes this the definitive Oblivion experience. For fans of the original, this is a great excuse to dive back into Cyrodiil. For newcomers, this is an excellent entry point into the Elder Scrolls series, though Skyrim might spoil you a bit. It's a trip down memory lane with a fresh coat of paint, and it's definitely worth your time. So, if you're looking for something polished, flawless, and revolutionary, this might not be your game. But if you want a game that captures the perfect balance of nostalgia and modern improvements, then this, Oblivion Remastered, is a loot. And that's a wrap on this episode of Loot or Leave It. What did you lot think of Oblivion Remastered? Is it a glorious return to Cyrodiil as we were promised, or just a nostalgia trip with prettier mud crabs? Drop your thoughts in the comments whether you're a seasoned Daedra Slayer or someone who just found out about Aelid Ruins. I'd love to hear it. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you didn't, feel free to angrily roleplay as the adoring fan in the comments. I'll pretend to care. And of course, subscribe for more, and hit that bell icon like it owes you septums. Thank you all ever so much for watching. My name has been Lickety from Kakuchopurei, and until next time, don't forget to repair your armor, keep an eye on your fatigue bar, and for the love of Talos, stay out of these shivering aisles unless you want to go mad. Ciao for now.